Hello guys, it is me Victoria, and in today's video I'm going to be interviewing Stirling Cooper. So if you don't know Stirling Cooper, he is the creator of this course I've been talking about a lot, Sexual Dominance Escalation Course. So on this channel, a lot of times before I make a video, I try to ask myself the question, what could truly provide value to you all? And I truly think that knowing how to give a woman a sexually dominant experience in bed could really help you guys. And if you could learn this skill, and it is a skill as Stirling talks about in the interview, you can transcend your looks, your money, if you live in your mother's basement. And I know personally, once I experienced this kind of sexual experience, everything else truly paled in comparison, and I can never really go back. And now before we get into the interview, I just wanted to play you guys one thing that I saw on TikTok today, which I think really shows the value of this course. Alright, did you see that look on her face? Okay, that's the look you want to have the girls you're with making and feeling. So that is what this course can help you make happen. So that's why I'm recommending it. I personally watched it, and all the moves he does are moves I've experienced. Well, not all of them, but a lot of them. And I think if you just try a couple of them, you'll be really surprised with the results, because it doesn't take, total mastery. It only takes like a few of those to sometimes show a woman that you can tap into that raw, attractive, masculine power within yourself and really wow her and make her value you, because she can't get that from other men. Another really important thing is in the course, he does show you how to baby step up to it so you don't get thrown in jail and nobody gets hurt, and the girl doesn't feel violated. Alright, so please forgive my very poor interviewing skills, but I really hope you enjoy this conversation with Stirling Cooper.
Well, first of all, thank you, Victoria, for giving me the opportunity to, come on YouTube channel and share. And honestly, like, you were one of the first women to reach out to me after I put out my Sexual Dominance Escalation video course, and hearing it from you, hearing you say, like, yes, all this stuff is like spot on, is surprisingly rare, because I find that a lot of women, you seem to be one of the few women who are actually incredibly self-aware, whereas I find a lot of women don't have that degree of self-awareness to truly understand what it is that actually turns them on, what it is that is actually attractive to them, that is arousing them. But to give you a background about me, for those all your viewers here, I guess. So I have been in the adult film industry since 2017. I've won an award, been nominated for several awards. Prior to working, and I've worked all around the world. I've worked in Australia, I've worked in England, I've worked in Europe, I've worked in America. So I've bounced around a fair bit. And prior to that, I was working as a high-class male companion, aka an escort, back in Australia, where my clients were basically wealthy businesswomen and couples who were looking for a live cuckolding experience. So I would service the wife in front of the husband as he sat back and enjoyed the show, that kind of thing. And then before that, I was in the swingers scene as a young man, oddly enough, as a single young man, which is very rare. I managed to somehow get my way into the swinging scene back in Australia and got invited to a lot of parties, mingled and played with a lot of people in that scene. And that was sort of my first introduction to like group sex, or to having sex in front of a group of people, which then naturally lent itself towards escorting, and then that naturally lent itself towards pornography. So I've had quite an extensive bit of experience in regards to sex, both professionally and amateurly, over the better part of the last decade, and that's kind of where I pull a lot of my knowledge, a lot of my teachings from, and I try to help as many guys as I can with things like performance anxiety, erectile dysfunction, and in the case of the video course that you've watched, learning how to push women's buttons properly in the bedroom and learning more how to be more dominant in the bedroom, because I feel like a lot of guys are really lacking in that regard, and they're lacking in that male, female, masculine, feminine polarity quite a lot.
So in your course, you say that nobody is born good in the bedroom and that any man can pick it up. So do you think there's some innate quality that a guy has to be able to physically dominate a girl convincingly? Or do you think any guy, no matter where he starts from, can do it?
I think that any man has the capacity to develop this skill set, because I fundamentally believe that it's a skill set like anything else. It's something, I mean, I wasn't born like this. Like when I had my first girlfriend back when I was like 16 and I lost my virginity, I was a completely different kind of lover than what I am today. And it's through years and quite a number of experiences of trial and error, figuring out like, and seeing like what women really respond to, and experimenting and testing and being like maybe pushing my own comfort zone quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even as recent as probably maybe 4 years ago, even as recent as maybe 4 years ago, before I got into pornography, I wasn't the kind of guy who would even be comfortable, say, erotically slapping a woman. And now that is, I'm very comfortable doing that, and I know how to do it properly, which is the important thing. Because a lot of guys will sort of, they'll hear things like, oh, you guys need to be more dominant in the bedroom. And this is what I think relates to a lot of these comments you're getting on your YouTube channel, where guys are scared to do it. They're scared of a Me Too allegation. They're scared of a sexual assault allegation, and rightfully so. The day and age we live in is very, very, the legal system, you know, there's a lot of very litigation heavy. Like a lot of guys are seeing other men being ruined for their sexual past. So it makes sense that they'll be worried about that. But I'm kind of here to tell guys that there's a way to do it properly to mitigate that. And a large part of that is in being able to read a woman's body language in the bedroom, being able to read the signs of whether or not she's receptive to these kind of things, and building up, if neither you nor her are quite ready for that, building up to it progressively, slowly, not just diving in, you know, head first to something that neither of you have really tried before, but baby stepping your way there. So I guess I think I forgot the question you originally asked, Victoria. So I've kind of ranted along somewhere else. Oh yeah, I was gonna say the reason I did it like I did it like a sliding scale, right, from like 0 to 100 that you'll see in the course, is because a lot of guys who come to, say, dating coaches or whatever on the internet, on YouTube, tend to be more on the sort of logical side of things. They tend to be more, I mean, in some cases you might call them autistic. And so when you can teach these kind of concepts to a guy much easier if you try to systematize it. Try to break down what is really more of an art form. If you try to break it down into a science, I feel like it translates better and guys can understand it easier. But going back to your question, yeah, do you have to be born with anything in particular for this? And I'm going to say no, because I know that through my own personal experience, I've transformed quite significantly in terms of the kind of lover I am. I used to be quite a shy guy, quite a self-conscious guy. Obviously, I'm not that kind of guy anymore. And I've seen students of mine transform like that, you know, over the course of the last year as I've been coaching guys. It's quite remarkable how much you can change if you put your mind to it and you accept that it's actually possible. Because it's a large part of coming across as dominant or being dominant in the bedroom is in what I call congruency. And it's the idea of congruency is when your thoughts, your words, and your actions are all in alignment with one another. So as an example of being incongruent, if you're, say, trying to be more dominant in the bedroom and you're not feeling so sure of yourself, and say you might go to, I don't know, like spank a woman, right? but your hands kind of trembling and shaky and sweaty, and it's very limp wristed when you do it. You know, and that's because like you're thinking, oh, I'm going to be dominant, and then but your actions aren't reflecting that, or it might be the other way around. Your actions might be reflecting it, but you're thinking and saying, oh, is that okay? Is that okay, dear? Is that too much? Does that hurt? There's no congruency with that. And so learning to be more dominant is just it's in to break it really simply down, is just about learning to come across congruent. And that takes time and it takes a bit of experience. But when I teach guys this stuff, I basically, like I said, I try to break it down as systematic as I can, so they can pick up on like the little cues and things of what, not what just what I'm doing, but also what the woman is sort of responding to as I'm doing it, so they can say, oh, okay, that's an example of, you know, submissive body language, or that's an example of a woman really enjoying this more, you know, extreme sex act. I just opening guys up. Sometimes they've never even experienced a woman being into something like that. Like maybe it might be choking, maybe it might be slapping, maybe it might be spanking. They've never experienced that with a woman before, so they don't even know that it's possible. So just showing them that it's something that women can really enjoy, done correctly, obviously done consensually. We're not running around doing this to women who don't want it. But that really can open guys' eyes up to what's possible, I think.
I'm loving everything you're saying, and especially like the part about congruence. And it's like from a woman's perspective, it's like we want to believe that just some guys naturally are this way, and you're saying that like for most guys you have to learn this and you have to become this and grow into this, and it's not natural. And like most guys, you know, kind of get the wrong idea. I don't know, like growing up, like they think things should be more equal. They think women want, you know, just this kind of more feminist style, I guess, like relationship. And guys just are not seeing that women have these like deep cravings and like kinky, you know, desires, and they want that experience of like a real live man who just goes for what he wants. So yeah, that's just
who takes what he wants.
Yeah.
I think there's a couple of things you raised there. One was, I think, I can only speak to, you know, male female dynamics since like since 1987, since I've been alive. I don't know what it was like before I was alive, but it seems to me, as our society has kind of become more feminist, that because of that, what kind of happened to men is men have kind of been made more effeminate. Masculinity has been pushed down. Like traditional masculine virtues have been sort of pushed down or swept away. So what this has created is a society where women aren't getting the masculine polarity that they crave. And the only acceptable place for them to get that now is in the bedroom. This is my theory as to why things like 50 Shades of Grey, for example, were such a big success. Why so many women are sort of flocking to these kinds of fantasies, this kind of sex, is because it's just it's the extreme of masculine and feminine polarity in the bedroom, like the guy being dominant, the woman being submissive. And we don't have that in society so much because, like you said, men have been taught, they've been raised rather, it should be an equal, a 50-50 relationship. It should be an equal relationship. Not a more traditional view where it's like, okay, you're the leader. You're in charge. You protect and provide for her. You're in charge of her safety, and you're the one but you have the authority and the responsibility, right? So that's an idea that has sort of been neglected, is that to have, if you've got a responsibility for, say, your wife in a relationship, be it, you know, you provide for her, you protect her, these kind of things, and the children, obviously, but you also have authority. So your word is the final word. You know, you're the captain of the ship, is kind of a better analogy. And she's the first mate. She's there. She's right there with you. She's just as important. She's not unimportant, but you're the one that's making the decisions, and you're also held accountable for those decisions. So If something goes wrong, it's your fault, but everyone is still following your authority, right? Now that is a great example of masculine and feminine polarity, and we've kind of lost that. So now the only really acceptable place for that to transpire, or not the only place, but a more acceptable place for that to transpire with most men and women today, is in the bedroom, and that's where the dominance and submission side of things comes into play, I guess.
That's a really interesting idea. So it's just like women are just, they have to get it somewhere, so they're making it into this fantasy, when you think that, you know, if there was more masculinity in general, like in regular life, then women wouldn't be like dying for it in the bedroom.
Maybe. I mean, it's just a theory, and I've got nothing to really, like I said, I've got nothing to really back it up, because I wasn't alive in the 1920s, so I can't really compare, you know. And I quite frankly don't talk about sex very much with people who were alive in the 1920s. So again, it's hard for me to verify my theories and this theory, this conclusion I've come to right now. But there is also just an innate aspect to sex, which is very primal and barbaric, and you know, that's that passion, right? When people talk about passionate sex, that's the kind of sex they tend to talk about. They're not talking about, you know, romantic, lovey-dovey. Oh, I lay her down gently on a bed of rose petals. That's romance. That's not passion. Passion is, he pushed me up against the wall and made out with me, and then threw me down on the bed and devoured me like a beast. That's passion, and that has most certainly always been there. That passionate style, and you could call that dominant as well. I think the sort of more extreme, maybe sort of perverted sex acts, for want of a better word, there's one way of describing them, might be attributed to this lack of masculine feminine polarity that I'm referring to. But that's definitely, this idea of passion has definitely always been around, because I mean, we have the old trope of the caveman bonking a woman on the head and then dragging her by her hair into the cave, right?
That's really interesting. Like what you're saying about the more perverted sex acts kind of just being like this reaction that's kind of like driving people like to the edge. That's really interesting. And do you think like it's confusing for guys to, like, they're being told be dominant only in the bedroom, but not in the rest of your life? Like, you're not going to have authority in the relationship. You're not going to. So does that like kind of confuse them, and they're just like, I don't get it, so they deny their instincts? Or
Yeah. I mean, I encourage guys to step into that kind of more traditional role in their relationships, because I think that is naturally kind of how we're more inclined, despite the fact that feminism would kind of teach us otherwise. So it's definitely not impossible. It's absolutely not impossible. But most guys aren't quite there yet. And so by teaching guys this sort of dynamic in the bedroom, in my experience, and I've seen this through, you know, testimonials from some of my customers, that it naturally leads to a more like traditional, for want of a better word, like male-female dynamic in the relationship, because he's showing his strength in the bedroom. It's reminding her, oh, okay, this is why I trust this man. This is why I follow this man's lead. Versus he's deferring to me in the bedroom, or he's constantly asking me what I want, or he's constantly, not that that's necessarily a bad thing, but he's more like supplicating in the bedroom than dominating in the bedroom. And because women don't want to lead, they want a man to lead. Fundamentally they want a guy who's going to step up and take charge and take care of everything. You know, be that like literally or just metaphorically. And what the problem that most men have these days is, or they've been raised in a very feminist society, is that they've been taught that everything that is masculine is somehow misogynistic, and you must hate women if you believe in traditional gender roles, which I fundamentally think is a total load of bollocks. But so they've been told that, and then society's quite feminist, And that leads guys to being to putting their foot down less, to being more hesitant when it comes to, say, taking charge in a relationship, leading in a relationship, telling a woman, what her duties and responsibilities are in that relationship, or guiding her. So sex is a way, it's kind of a covert way to teach guys this more traditional dynamic, and to transition it smoothly into the relationship, because it's a lot easier to have a woman fall into that submissive frame when in the bedroom, because she's having fun and she's enjoying it and she's getting off on it. Then, say, for example, like telling her in the middle of the daytime, "Hey, honey, why haven't you cooked me dinner today?" It's like there's no sort of incentive structure there for her, if she hasn't already sort of accepted the role of the traditional feminine. Then she's going to kind of react against it, right? But in the bedroom, it's a place where you can come in with genuine masculine feminine polarity, and things can transition into a much smoother relationship. I had a customer reach out to me after he watched this video course and be like, I watched your course and I applied what I learned, and I just had the best, me and my wife just had the best sex that we've ever had for the last 10 years of our marriage. Thank you. Things are back on track again. And I'm like reading that, like, holy hell, this is way worse than I thought it was.
It's really genius, because you're saying by guys learning how to do these steps, which you teach in your course in the bedroom, the girl will start craving it. She'll start wanting it more and more. She'll start seeing him differently, as stronger than her, as worthy and deserving it, and then she'll naturally kind of be more open. It's really interesting how sex can open up people's relationships totally.
Well, sex can be looked at as like a glue that holds a relationship together, right? And I can immediately tell when if I look at a couple, out in the wild, if she is nagging him in public, I can immediately tell you that she is not having good sex. Like you instantly know that she's not being dicked down properly, because a woman who's having great sex, all she wants to do is get more great sex and please the guy that's giving her great sex. She should be. A lot of guys sort of get this backwards and think, you hear all these kind of tropes in marriage of, like, the bedroom dries up, or like, oh, my wife always has a headache, this kind of stuff. The best dynamic is when she is chasing you, the woman is chasing the man for sex. That's the best dynamic. That's when both parties are happiest, because she wants to chase after, she wants sex from a man and if it's the other way around, if the guy is not getting sex and he's constantly nagging the girl for sex, it tells you something. It tells you that the sex isn't great.
In your opinion, do you think that, like, all women, have they kind of told you, like, they have these deep kinky desires, or do they not really realize what's happening, or do they kind of tell you, like, I need the guy to be powerful, I need him to be strong, that's the only kind of acceptable guy to me, these kinds of deep desires?
It's very rarely verbalized. I'd say it's very, very rarely verbalized, like you just said. And like I said at the beginning, you're the kind of woman who's extremely self-aware, which is a rarity. So most of the time, it's not a case of them verbalizing, oh, I needed you to do this, I needed you to do that. It's simply me observing what I'm doing differently and how they're responding to it. Are they just elated and happy and sitting there in bliss? And then after the fact, after the sex, are they craving more of it? If they're craving more of it, then it's like, okay, well, whatever I did was absolutely correct.
Wow. So you're saying, like, when you do provide this dominant experience, even girls who maybe don't have maybe super high sex drive or something, like, they're craving more. It's just, this is the thing they've been craving all along, and opens them up.
Yeah, it definitely opens them up, and it opens them up. If it opens them up to a new experience, if you're the kind of guy who can give her a sexual experience she's never had before, that immediately makes you the best lover she's ever had. It's by default, right? Because no other guy's done this to her before. And you'd be surprised how, to all the men listening right now, you'd be surprised how basic most sex is for the average, man and woman in the world. Like, there's very few people who are having the kinds of sex that, well, the kinds of sex that I teach in this video course, there's not that many people having it. And I can tell this again because of the emails I get back from people that are like, oh wow, I've only ever tried like a quarter of this kind of stuff. Wow, this has really opened up my eyes to a whole, new plethora of ideas. Or I never would have thought I was the kind of guy who could choke a girl erotically. Thank you for showing me how to do this. Now I understand how to do it properly. And that all comes down to, again, just this fundamental masculine feminine polarity in terms of like the guy being the dominant one, the woman being the submissive one. Because here's the thing: it's a guy who has the capacity for violence, for want of a better explanation, is extremely attractive. I mean, MMA fighters, boxers, these are all very attractive men to women, right? Not even necessarily consciously, but subconsciously, a guy who can fight is attractive. And why is this? Well, if you have, as a man, have the capacity for violence, it means that you have the ability to protect her. That is a very deep psychological, like evolutionarily evolved response. Now, how can she be certain that you're capable of protecting her? Well, if you are able to physically dominate her, that's pretty clear indication that you have strength, right? That you have that capacity for violence. Doesn't mean you're going to be violent to her. Doesn't mean you're going to assault her, abuse her, any of these things. That's not what we're saying. Obviously, this is all done consensually and with love, with genuine love. This is done to please your partner. But it comes from this sort of deeper place of showing that you have the capacity for violence, which is a very controversial thing to talk about.
It's like every time, in the bedroom, he does something dominant, it's proof right then and there. And that proof is like, just like a mindgasm, like right then there. Cause it's like, yes, he deserves it. Yes, he's alpha enough. Like, yes, like I'm right to be with him. So I totally agree. And it's that capacity for violence, and it just signals like strength, power, like he's worthwhile. Like, it sounds so terrible, but yeah.
Well, it sounds simplistic.
Yeah.
Right. This idea that it kind of all boils down to strength, but a better which in today's modern society it sounds weird. It's like the guy who's giving her, say, very tame vanilla sex, but he's earning 6 figures a year. He's providing for their kids. They've got a lovely house. They've got a 401k. They've got a nice car, and yet she's still not satisfied because the sex is very tame and vanilla. Well, it's unfortunate that the brains that we have were evolved for a time that was very different. We're not evolved for this existence, for this society that we currently live in. We're evolved for, from caveman times when we were like small bands of tribes warring against each other quite often. And think if you think of everything in that context, it starts to make a lot more sense. Because in that context, okay, well, she's part of a tribe, and then there's another warring tribe coming in to, say, rape and pillage or whatever. Like, if you're the man who can kick the crap out of the guy who's trying to steal your woman, she's sticking by your side. You just stopped her from being sexually assaulted. She's gonna stay with you. She's like you said, it reaffirms that he is strong enough to have you. And it sounds weird in this day and age, but when you put it in that context, it makes more sense, I think.
Totally. Question for you. So many guys on my channel and stuff, they're saying, oh, this only works if you're rich, or this only works if you have incredible looks. And I'm just like, oh, come on, people. Do you agree that regardless of looks and money, this is something that can make you the best lover she's ever had, her think of you as the strongest, coolest, most badass guy she's ever met? Or do you think you need to also be good looking, also be rich, socially skilled? What do you think?
I can confirm without a shadow of a doubt that you do not need those other things. Those other things do help. Don't get me wrong. Like those other things are attractive, like status, wealth, a good looking body. These are all things that are attractive, and you can also work on all. These are all things you can improve on. By the way, obviously you can't change the way your face looks really, but if you can get in shape, you could lose a few pounds. You can get some abs. These are all. This is within the realm of possibility. You can earn more money. You can hustle. You can build up a social network and gain some status and some clout. But I mean, a perfect example is like I've got clients who are 18, 19-year-old dudes, and they're pulling off this stuff. Show me, apart from Justin Bieber, show me like an 18, 19-year-old man who has anything going for him, really, compared to like a 30-year-old man. I'm saying this now as a 30-year-old man. Like I was a bum when I was in my early 20s. I was a total bum, but I was doing this kind of stuff in my early 20s with girls, and I'm not really proud to say it, but there's a couple of girls that I would see regularly in my early 20s who were cheating on their fiancés, like six-figure lawyers. They were cheating on them to come spend time with me for extended periods for like 6 months at a time, because I gave them something that he couldn't, or he didn't know how to. And I had zero. I mean, surprisingly enough, I'm a good-looking man. Don't get me wrong, but I wasn't as good-looking in my early 20s. I've matured with age, so I can tell you I'm much better looking now than I was in my 20s. I had acne and shit.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't as good-looking. Had no money, no fame or status or anything like that. But I was a bit of a smooth talker, so I was able to get her into bed in the first place. But then once she had sex with me, she was hooked because of the kind of sex I was giving her versus the kind of sex that her was trying to make.
Don't you think it's even a little more badass? Like if you have no money, you have no good looks, and yet you're still just super dominant. She's still obsessed with you. I don't know. I think it's even more a submissive feeling for the girl because you're just like, God, I truly am hooked, and he's giving me nothing.
Wrap her head around. Yeah. She can't wrap her head around why. She can't figure it out. It makes you an enigma. You're a mystery. She can't figure out why the hell am I so obsessed with this guy. He's got no money. He's not that great looking. He's like, but what? But I can't stop seeing him. What the hell is it? Well, obviously it's the sex, but she doesn't quite realize that. It takes her a while to sort of rationalize that.
Yeah. In one of your interviews I was watching, you were saying, there's no substitute for actual experience. How do you recommend for guys that are just getting like no experience? What should they do? Like, how do they even get the woman into the bedroom to practice, to develop these skills?
It's a situation of the hungry don't get fed, which is a real unfortunate situation, right? Where guys who have more have more options, have more attention from women, end up with more sexual experience and end up being better in bed, versus typically, not all the time, but typically, versus guys who have limited options, they've got less experience, and so they sort of can't leave as strong of an impression. And I mean, honestly, you've basically just got to solve that problem. You've got to get better in bedroom, to get more experience. Obviously, you've got to get out there and meet more women. And in this day and age, there's things like Tinder, like Bumble, like Hinge, even Instagram, which is, for want of a better, if you want to like it or not, Instagram is actually a dating app these days. So I don't really teach that. I don't teach that stuff. I have friends who do teach that stuff, and they're quite good at teaching that stuff. And so I guess if any guy is struggling in that department, then it's worth because I used to do this. I did this in my 20s. I invested time and energy and money into learning how to be more attractive to women, learning how to talk to them and learning how to get their number, learning how to take them out on dates, and learning how to bring them home from a date. Like these are again, this is a skill set you can systematically learn, and there are guys out there teaching it. And you can look on my YouTube channel. I've interviewed all my friends who teach this stuff, and they're very good at what they do. But that's the first place to start. And you don't need like, you really only need one to practice on, to start practicing on, because and then once you've sort of figured out all the buttons on this particular woman, when you have then maybe you try these same things on another woman, and you recognize certain patterns and then certain differences.
Mm-hmm.
And you start to think, oh, okay, well, this thing worked for both of them, but this technique over here was a bit iffy. Okay, maybe that's something that I need to pay attention to with the next girl I sleep with. And then you can start to form in your mind the pattern of how these things work, of what sex acts, what types of dominant sex acts women respond positively to across the board.
I just feel like so many guys have been like beaten down and kind of broken by being rejected by women, and they're just spending so much time and energy, and I think they should, to like become better with women, exactly like you're saying. But now you're a guy, you've done like everything that a guy could really do, and it's like you've become straight male escort, you're a top porn star, you've slept with so many women. My question is it really the dream that you think like so many guys think it will be at the top looking back? Like, is it kind of different than you expected?
It's definitely different than I expected 4 years ago when I first got into this. So here's the thing. It's like, don't get me wrong, being a porn sex is very fun. It's very fun sex, but it's still like it's still a fantasy. After working with some of the most beautiful actresses in the world for the last 4 years, I can still honestly, and getting paid for it at the same time, I can still honestly say that it doesn't compare to the experience of sweeping a girl, like meeting like a girl you've never met before, sweeping her off her feet, and giving her like a great sex, and having this sort of passionate sexual experience with a woman who has genuine desire for you. That is the best experience that you could get. That is better than being paid to be with a top level adult film actress, because you, in the back of your mind, that she's being paid to be there as well. You might have great chemistry, don't get me wrong. I've had fantastic chemistry with a lot of my co-stars, but it's not every co-star, right? It's very hit and miss. Sometimes, and it's the same with me. Like sometimes the girl's attracted to me, and I'm just not that attracted to her. And they're all beautiful, but it's just it's more than that. It's like maybe it's a pheromone thing. I don't know. Maybe it's a personality thing. Whatever it is, some women give me a far more visceral response than other women, and vice versa. So you're never going to match with every girl, but you still have to do the job. But it still doesn't beat like sweeping, in my opinion at least, like sweeping a girl off her feet and having having that amazing chemistry, on your first date, and then taking that to the bedroom. That is one of the best experiences a guy can have in his life, I think.
Do you feel like being dominant healed a part of you or taught you anything? And do you feel like it could do the same for guys?
That's a very good question. Yeah, I think it helps guys to embrace, the sort of the more natural masculine role in their relationship. I think once you start sort of laying down the law in the bedroom, it certainly builds confidence. It builds, authority, and that does manifest itself into your day-to-day life. When you're the kind of guy who can give her like a dozen different orgasms, you walk through the world differently. You interact with women differently. That's for damn sure. Like because in the back of your mind, when you're talking to a new woman, you're thinking in the back of your mind, you silly girl, you don't have a clue what you're getting yourself into. If only you knew what you're about to sign yourself up for. Those kind of thoughts go through your head, which is obviously a very confident, cocky frame of mind to come from. but it can have a really, really positive impact on guys' lives. Absolutely. Yeah. No, there's no shadow of a doubt.
It just changes you knowing what you can do, what you can offer that other guys can't and aren't. Or what do you think of this advice? Never compliment a beautiful woman. Is this true or not?
I'd say never compliment a woman who hasn't earned it. So she has to earn the compliment, right? So in that case, in that instance, just commenting a woman on her looks out of the blue doesn't really do anything for you, right? But using compliments should be used as rewards for good behavior, right? So if she's done something really nice for you, she's cooked you a nice meal, she's cleaned the house or something, she's she's given you a fantastic blowjob, whatever it might be, she's done something for you which is really nice. That's the time to use that compliment as a reward for reinforcing good behavior, reinforcing the kind of behavior you want to see in your partner. I mean, this doesn't just apply to male-female relationships either. This applies to everything. You know, this would apply. The same thing would apply for your kids. The same thing would apply for your work colleagues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great point. Yeah, just like the positive reinforcement and not reinforcing bad behavior. Going back to one thing you said about chemistry and like the chemistry you've had with different co-stars and women in your life. And I think you were kind of saying like you don't really know what it comes down to, but do you have any thoughts on just, after so many different women who you really are drawn to and really just have that kind of mystical chemistry with?
I think a large part of it comes, well, I definitely feel that chemistry with women who tend to be more humble.
Humble?
That's the first thing. Like women who are humble, women who are submissive, like they're naturally submissive. They're not trying to sort of fight me for position, so to speak. Because I don't have chemistry with women when I'm on a film set. I don't have chemistry with women who are very diva-ish. Women who are walking around acting like they're the shit. Women who are acting like you're lucky just to be anywhere near her vagina, that kind of attitude. It does nothing for me whatsoever. And I imagine it probably wouldn't do much for most guys. So yeah, but like I'm definitely into submissive girls. That if she's, because I walk into the room and we both get each other's vibe instantly. She gets that she's submissive and she wants a guy who likes submissive girls, and she immediately picks up on that with me. Then we're going to have a fantastic day, and we both know that. And so the chemistry just naturally evolves from there, I think.
What are your relationships like? Is it hard to have relationships?
It can be a bit harder to have relationships with people outside of my industry. That's for certain, because a lot of women find it a bit harder to come to terms with the fact that I'm having sex with a woman for money. So it absolutely is a bit of a challenge. And I've had a couple of girlfriends in the past who thought they were okay with it and then couldn't handle it, so they had to leave. And I've also had relationships with women who are in the industry as well, and that's an interesting dynamic. But my industry tends to attract people who are I mean, I'm guilty as charged, but are very narcissistic. So when you have two narcissists in a relationship, it doesn't really tend to work out very well in the long term. But for the most part, yeah, I still look for relationships. I'm not in one right now, but I'm not opposed to them. But I'm definitely not a monogamous guy. Absolutely the kind of guy who would if a woman was to be, say, my primary, she'd have to be comfortable with the fact that I'm going to have other women in my life.
Why do you think you were like called to porn? Was it some drive to just like max out on kind of like sexual experiences in life, or what do you think it was for you?
It might have been that. I was never really able to put my finger on it. The reason I got into porn, honest to God, this is the reason I got into porn. I had a close family member who was dying of cancer, and when someone's dying of cancer, it's not this sort of sudden thing. It's this very slow, drawn out process where you're sort of faced with death every day. You're thinking about death all the time, right? And I went through this period where for a month straight, every day, I woke up and asked myself the same question. I asked myself, if I died today, what's the one thing I would regret having never done in my life? And for 30 days straight, the answer to that question was pornography. I don't know why that was the answer to that question, but that was the answer. And so that's why I said, all right, well, I better do this. Otherwise, I'm going to regret it for the rest of my life if I don't at least try to do this thing. And so I went and did it. I think a large part of that might be the fact that I don't like living a normal life. I don't. The idea of being mediocre terrifies me. Like literally, like it makes me anxious. The idea of being normal actually makes me anxious. So I never want to live a life that is like complacent. I'm always trying to do new and different things and be more and be better, because I like, why be ordinary when you could choose instead to be extraordinary? And I'm not saying I'm extraordinary. I've just done things that are different to most guys' experiences. So I would rather do things that no one else has really, but not no one else, but very few people have ever done, and live the kind of life, live a unique life that no one else has really done before.
It really did seem just like a calling. Like every single day for those 30 days, you woke up and that was the answer, and you just knew you had to follow it, or you would just regret it for the rest of your life and just be like, disgusted with yourself.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Can I just be honest with you really quick? Like, literally so similar. I wanted to be a stripper so bad, and I had that exact same feeling, and I did. And I was a stripper for 3 years. I had the exact same feeling of just like, I'm going to be on my deathbed and I'm going to just like be hating myself. And like, I'm just going to feel like I wasted my life. And like, I just had to do it, but I was really scared at this point in my life. So I feel like I understand some of what you're saying there. And I really, really admire that a lot. And I think it's really cool.
Well, thank you. I look, it's not exactly a profession that most people look up to for. I'll say that I do get a bit of flack online from more traditional people, more like for want of a better, like Christians, conservatives, these kind of people. But you'd like, if there's anyone watching who happens to be of that inclination and might think I'm a complete degenerate and waste of space and a burden to society, etc., you would be quite surprised how similar my value system is to a more traditional conservative. You'd be quite surprised to find out that we would actually have quite a lot in common. I just also am a complete pervert.
So you have like a more conservative value system.
I would call myself a libertarian. If you had to put a label on anything, I would call myself libertarian.
I feel like you're going to the top where many guys maybe are too afraid to go, and then you're bringing back help and insight and breaking down these things for guys to kind of get them out of the pit, because I feel like so many people are just struggling and hurting. And I love how you say you're like a big brother to guys, and you truly want to help them. You don't look down on them, but you really just, I feel like you genuinely want to teach, help, and make them great.
I do. I mean, it's so probably the reason for that is like I was in that situation. Like I was in a very similar situation to a lot of these guys in my like late teens. I lost my virginity to like my my first girlfriend. I lost my virginity to her. We dated for like 3 years. She cheated on me. I was a complete dork, complete nerd. Like you'd say very low social IQ would be a great way of describing me. Me at the age of like 18, 19. And I'm not being bitter about it. I'm very grateful for that experience, for her like breaking my heart into a million pieces was the best thing that has ever happened to me in my life, because it pushed me down a path of self-development, of learning to be better with women, of learning about, social IQ, learning about male-female dynamics, learning how to, and then pursuing greater things, like pursuing fitness, pursuing bodybuilding, pursuing business, all these kinds of things. And so it led me to where I am today. So without that shitty experience, I wouldn't be here. I would be complacent. I would be mediocre. And I just see myself in a lot of these guys. So I just want to help them. And the other big thing is that my brother, so I'm actually the youngest sibling in my family. And my brother is, obviously I don't use my real name. So Stirling Cooper is a stage name for those of you who are not quite aware of how we name ourselves in the porn industry. But my brother, so I'm not doxing him by saying this. My brother is 10 years older than me, and he has never had a girlfriend in his life. And at the time, he was a 40-year-old virgin, like a literal one, like 3 years ago. I don't know if that's changed since then. But I tried to help my brother about probably like 8 years ago now. I tried to reach out and help him and give him some advice, because I was going through a period of growth and learning and trying to self-improvement and whatever. And I was trying to help myself. I thought, I should really help my brother, because he's my big brother. And he didn't, it was too late for him. He was too stuck in his ways. And maybe there was the ego, bruise of having your younger brother trying to give you advice. There's probably another big component of that. So I try, like you said, I try to act like the big brother that a lot of these guys never had. Or maybe I don't think I'm old enough to be considered a father figure, but definitely a big brother figure. So even for guys my own age, I try to give them a lot of as much non-judgmental guidance, but at the same time, harsh truth that they need to help them along the way. Because sometimes you got to be cruel to be kind. Sometimes, a lot of the time, it doesn't help people at all to tell them comforting lies. If you tell them comforting lies, they just stay in the same rut that they're in. They'll feel better for a few seconds, but then they're still in the same place. A lot of people need is a shock to the system to get their ass moving, to get them doing things, to get them improving themselves. So I try in what way I can to kind of help guys as much as possible.
I really love that story. I mean, that's really sad. I can't believe like he had like the master in front of him, and he just,
like I said, it's a very bruising thing to one's ego. I can't imagine. I don't have a younger brother. I can only imagine, some little snot who's like 10 years younger than me trying to tell me what to do. I'd be like, get the hell out of here. I'd probably react the same way, if I'm being honest.
So another thing I was thinking as you were talking about that is, I love how you literally demonstrate every move. You literally demonstrate how to put it together, how to implement it. And I feel like a lot of these dating coaches out there, it's very like vague abstractions and stuff about like, the masculine and the energy you need to project and stuff. And you're just like, I am showing it to you. I am naked. I'm like in front of you. Just, it's so amazing. It's so rare. I feel like you're truly providing that value.
There's as far as I'm aware, there's no other. I like to call it the world's first no bullshit sex education course for men, because as far as I'm aware, there's never been anyone who's been willing to get their dick out on camera and simultaneously teach guys these sex techniques. And I'm talking to the camera as I'm like demonstrating this stuff. I mean, you've seen this stuff. I'm not fully naked though. I keep my shirt on for the entire thing to try and come across more professional. And I think it worked.
And yeah, I highly recommend the course to all my viewers. And I want to let them know that you have so kindly given a discount And they've been asking me nonstop, and I'm like telling them, all right, I'm going to interview him soon. He said he'd give me a discount code. So I'm really excited that they can finally get this and report back. All right, this is kind of like generic, but what do you think is the number one thing guys do wrong with women? Like, if you had to just say one thing.
This is the one thing that I would this would be the first thing I will teach my sons about women. And that is that what women say and what women do are two totally different things for the most part, for with most women. And what I mean by that, so a perfect example of this would be the woman who says she wants a nice guy, and then she goes and sleeps with the bad boy. Right? The woman that says she wants she wants commitment, and then she goes and has a one night stand with the football player. These two things would to a man to men who are very very logical thinkers, that like they get very confused by this because it's conflicting. It's like she's saying this, but I'm seeing this different different evidence playing out. So I think the thing that most men get wrong with women is that they take women's words as like verbatim. It's far better to observe women's actions as an honest indicator of their actual like thoughts, the actual motivations, like what actually drives them, what actually motivates them, what they actually respond to. It's far better to observe her actions than listen to what she says. I don't mean never listen to a woman. It's not what I'm saying. But in terms of the mistake that most guys make, I think they put too much of an emphasis on the words that come out of her mouth, because women tend to live in the emotional state of the now, right? If she's angry at you, if you're her boyfriend, you're her husband or whatever, if she's angry at you right now, then in her mind she's always been angry. Like, you've always sucked, right? But in an hour from now, when she's calmed down, you no longer have always sucked, right? And you're nodding because you know I'm right.
Well, my boyfriend tells me this exact same thing after every fight, and I'm like, huh?
I think with that particular example, it's a case of most women are not aware of what they're actually attracted to.
Mm-hmm.
Because think like social conditioning is can be quite strong. Like media and music and TV and newspapers and things, the message that most young girls grow up with is what Disney tells them, which is, the knight in shining armor is going to come in, he's going to sweep her off her feet. The heroes in Disney movies are never like the bad boy jock. They're always like the valiant, like virtuous hero type. Mm-hmm. They're not like the a bit sketchy drug dealer DJ types. That's not what Disney sells. So women are like, girls are brought up with that kind of an arc. They're taught that this is what you should be looking for. And then you have Hallmark movies telling them the exact same thing all over again. Oh, you're really going to eventually fall for the nice guy. But deep down, their biology is telling them something completely different. So they're believing the lies and then regurgitating those lies. But in the end, they act on, what they actually respond to biologically.
Have you ever been with a girl who just didn't like your domination?
Yeah, there was one. It was one really, really polarizing experience, but surprisingly enough, only one. And that was a girl I actually really, we were actually both really attracted to each other in every way. But then when it came down to the sex, I was doing what I was normally doing, and she was very much against it, very, very turned off by it. And then the next time I saw her, I deliberately changed what I was doing to be like typically more quote unquote romantic sex. And she was like, oh yes, that's what I actually wanted. But she was the one, and like I said, I've had sex with over 500 women at this point, the one exception to the rule. So there will always be an exception to the rule. So I will happily concede that what I try to teach guys is what applies to the vast majority of women, and what's gonna get them the best results generally. So it's obviously there is the 1 in 500 exception to the rule according to my sample size.
That's really surprising and illuminating. Like I was thinking it would be more maybe. But one question I had is like, do you think that maybe because you were in the swinger scene, like these kind of more sexually open girls, like maybe respond to domination better, like maybe they have the stronger, sex drive or something?
They definitely have a stronger sex drive. They've definitely come. They you don't really get into the swinger scene unless you have a pretty high sex drive. So that's absolutely true. But during my whole time in the swinging scene, during my whole time working as an escort, during my time as a porn star, I still see what we would call civilians.
Yeah.
Women who are not in that scene or that line of work. I still date and have relations with those kinds of women as well. So my foot is in both circles.
That right there says a lot. Is your sample size is probably greater than, almost anyone's probably.
Oh
right?
no, there's plenty of people who have a lot. You'd be surprised. There's a lot of guys who've had a lot more sex than me.
Really?
Obviously, in the porn industry, if you've been in the industry longer, you're gonna have more sex.
Hmm.
There's guys who have been in the industry for like 10 years who've had 1,000, 2,000 different scene partners. Okay, fine. But I personally know some guys who are like not in my industry who've had sex with 600, 800 women. Yeah.
Wow, that's impressive.
But they're very rare. It's not like every guy is like this. This is like 1 in like 100,000 men or something. Like maybe even rarer than that. It's very very rare to. I just happen to go to move in these kinds of degenerate circles, so I meet guys like this.
Okay, I maybe have time for just one more question, but yeah. I saw this in an interview with you, which I was watching, and you were kind of describing like how in the porn industry, most guys are what you would call like blue pill, and that maybe could like explain why some of the scenes are like very unrealistic in a way and kind of like not really from like the woman's perspective, and they're more like comedic almost and like not really serious. Could you elaborate on that? Because I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah. So, you look at any kind of sitcom that you have on TV right now, right? The father is always some kind of bumbling idiot. So, like most mainstream movies, most TV shows, the male character tends to be a bumbling idiot of some kind, and the woman comes in and sorts things out and does it all right. That narrative still kind of applies in pornography, except it's the man isn't the sexual aggressor, the woman is the sexual aggressor.
Mm-hmm.
Like probably 80% of the porn that is shot, it's the woman that is the sexual aggressor. There are a couple of studios that shoot more, they're literally called like pure taboo, like they shoot more taboo stuff where the guy is the sexual aggressor, but he's never the sexual aggressor in like a smooth way. He's always doing it in a creepy way, like deliberately the scripts are deliberately written that way. But for the most part, yeah, it's the woman being a sexual aggressor. But why is that? Well, that's because that's most guys, that's the fantasy of most guys, is like not having to do a goddamn thing, and this beautiful woman lusts over you. Like that is like that is the fantasy of basically every man, and it is a fantasy because it is not reality. That is not how beautiful women act. That is not how women in general act. Even working in the porn industry, even being in the swinging scene, the guy still has to do something. The guy still has to make a move. The guy still has to initiate things. So even in those circles, these rules, like reality still applies, oddly enough. So, and then in relation to my comment where I said most guys in my industry are quote unquote blue pill. What I mean by this is they pedestalize women. So it's this situation where everyone is running around kind of kissing the girl's ass. And for the most part, there's a good reason for this. It's so that she doesn't get upset, doesn't have a temper tantrum of some kind, doesn't have an emotional outbreak of some kind, and we can't film the scene anymore. And then people have to go home without being paid, and money is wasted. So that I understand why it is the case it is, but basically all the directors, all the lighting guys, all the script writers, for the most part, don't have the same kind of mentality that I have. They have a mentality more along the lines of, oh, she's a goddess, she can do no wrong, she's perfect. And whenever you actually sit down and get a genuine answer from a beautiful woman, they hate being pedestalized. They cannot stand, like, because they're not being treated like a human. They're being treated like this perfect object, which they, in their own mind, know they aren't. They know they're flawed like everybody else. Yet their whole day on set, everyone's treating them like they're perfect, and then all their fans are treating them like they're perfect. Everyone who's sliding in their DMs is treating them like they're perfect. So this kind of creates it can create a very weird kind of mental relationship with their own sense of self-worth and identity, which I don't personally think is that healthy. I think it's perfect. I think it's healthy for people to have to hold kind of a paradoxical viewpoint, in that they both have. I think it's especially for guys that they should both have an ego and be humble at the same time. And by this, I mean, you want to have an ego, you want to be invested in yourself, you want to have confidence in yourself and your ability to execute on things. But at the same time, you want to be humble enough to realize, be self-aware enough to see your own flaws, and so you can correct them when you need to, and see when you're failing at something, and more importantly, learn from somebody who might know more than you about something. So you kind of have to have a balance of both of those things. But if you don't have that, if you don't have the humbleness to sort of sit, if everyone's telling you you're the shit, you're the bee's knees, but in the back of your mind you're like, oh well, I sleep on like a mattress on the floor, and like I eat like 2-minute noodles all day. Like, am I really amazing? Mm-hmm. It starts to burrow away at your sense of self-worth.
Sterling, I know you have to go, so I just want to say thank you so much. Like, I honestly feel all of your advice is like pure gold. You truly have the experience to be able to tell people solid, real advice. I highly recommend your course, and I just really appreciate how open and also just, smart and thoughtful you were this whole interview. So just thank you so much for talking to me. Thank you, Sterling.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to come on and have a chat with you. Look, we'll definitely do this again sometime. I'll have you on my show, because I think you have some really interesting insights. So
that'd be amazing.
That'd be really, really cool. And you will be the first non porn star woman that has been on my show. So that'll be very, very exciting. Although you are a stripper, so you're adjacent to the industry, so that gets, you're kind of in the family. And I want to remind everybody that I've got a discount code for your viewers specifically. If you go to my Gumroad page, gumroad.com/Stirling Cooper. Stirling is spelled STIRLING. And you go to my Sexual Dominance Escalation Course, you can get it for $100 off if you use the code NONLEATHER. Use the code NONLEATHER, and that's up for the next week. Once this video goes live, I'll give it the countdown of a week, and then to jump on it before it expires. And if you do thank Victoria, let her know, show some support for the channel, and